Taking a look at another collection released for March 2023, the Ambience Sci-Fi collection. So this collection has 152 sounds and it's spread across 15 different sub-projects inside of the main Reaper project. So if you've seen the February collections that were released, all the different ambience, this is going to be similar in structure to that, so it should be familiar. I recommend you check those videos out as well because some of the stuff with the ambience collections can take some getting used to as far as seeing the layout. But we'll go through this one and give you another sense of how these ambience collections are kind of constructed, which is really interesting and really kind of efficient. So you're not having to deal with tons of different tracks or tons of different variations. It's very easy to navigate these. So we'll check it out and show you what I did as far as implementing these into my Unreal demo project. All right, so going over the main project window here, let's get a sense of what types of material and what types of sub-project categories there are. These are, again, similar to what we had in the February releases. So we have these drone type of projects, which are some tonal sort of sounds to create, kind of an atmosphere, or maybe even use as room tone. And then there's some exterior sort of ambiences. So this one has harbor, planet, and some traffic, urban. Actually, pretty good coverage, more than actually what I would maybe have expected. There's also some interior type of sounds, which again are more room tone type of oriented things, with different sorts of background noise layers that you can kind of alter a little bit. What else? Objects. So things that are more like stingers than they are like ambient loops or anything like that. So different types of object sounds, people. There's like some different types of walla in there, and some space sounds. I think there's like something like a meteor and asteroid in there, which is kind of fun. And then some transportation. It doesn't cover entire like vehicle library, obviously, but there's something in there that you can go for if you need. Let's look at exterior urban first. Just getting a sense of what the different loops are. There's 2 different loops and some of the important layers. We have a basic layer, which is hum, and then we have a people layer. So let's kind of just play an example of this for you. And we also have a distance and intensity modulation control. That basically will control different plugins on these individual layers in a way that will alter your perceived distance or intensity of the sound. So one layer in particular, maybe you don't want people. So you can play with these. You can have a lot of people, but maybe put them so there will increase the intensity. And then if we want to make them further away, you can play with that. So on and so forth. And then we have a separate reverbs for both loop 1 and loop 2. All right, I also wanted to check out and show you the interior room tone project. This isn't like, the most, obviously the most exciting thing in the world as far as listening experience. But one thing that I do like in here is the 2 layer options. You have a hum and then a vent. So depending on, what you need happening or what's happening in a room, you don't have to deal with a whole bunch of different room tones. There's just, this one sub project that you can kind of create a combination of the vent or the hum, however you want it. So just kind of take a quick listen to that and play around with the modulation parameters. Again, we have 2 different loops, different settings. So again, like these, these modulation parameters that have been painstakingly set up for us are such a huge shortcut in terms of customizing the sound. The way that these are automating all kinds of different plugin parameters is going to be a huge time saver. Maybe you haven't seen the other ambience collections that were released. Check out the videos for those as well if you really want to get a sense of how useful these ambience collections end up being. All right, I'm in the objects transportation project, and there was a lot more in here than I really expected prior to opening it. So you have some really cool things, and we'll take a quick look and quick preview of some of them. So very cool stuff. All right, let's check out objects people. So again, taking a look at some of the layerings, we can just get an overview of what to expect. And there's some animal, alien, and robot. There is also a distance parameter in here as well, which you can play around with, which is nice. Object space. So this is pretty cool. Another distance parameter, which is very nice if you're trying to like do some placement with these before you ever get them into your project. One way using this ambience collection in linear media could be interesting would be using the various macros to set up a couple different perspectives. All right. Before we go and start wrapping things up, let's do a quick review or overview if this is your first time having a look at it with the composites track and how the main mix and just how how your listening experience is basically structured and what kind of control you have when you're playing around with these ambience collections. So as you can see, there's all sorts of different channel counts or tracks that are correspond to different types of surround channels or ambisonic channels or just binaural and stereo. Obviously, when you open these up, what is unmuted for you to monitor through is going to be the stereo track by default. That's always how it's set. So unless you actually have a physical system where you're capable of listening to some of these other options, then you really don't need to play around with any of this just while you're working inside of the Reaper project. All of the material that's on the loops is actually being encoded to the Ambix third order, which coming out of the main mix is then sent to all of the other tracks here. So you can see how these sends are structured, and then they just are simply decoded accordingly. So there's a decoder track on all these. Now the interesting thing is whatever tracks you do have unmuted, whether or not they're actually assigned to your audible mix bus, you can render out and transfer them. If you wanted to transfer them into Wise, to use these inside of a Wise project, you can obviously use those file types in there, and it'll mix it to whatever hardware you have available or connected to your system. One quick reminder with these ambience projects or these ambience collections, you really need to make sure that you have the IEM plugins installed. Otherwise, all the things that I was showing you with the the composite tracks and how that all comes together, it's not going to function at all. So do make sure that you have those plugins installed. They're critical for these ambience collections. All right, that about wraps it up. Thanks everyone for checking out the new collections for March 2023. Be sure to like the video and subscribe if you want to see the overviews for the new collections as they come out, and kind of explore with me as I check out the really interesting features that each one sort of seems to bring. So take care and thank you again.